Hey guys. So today we're going to do something different. We're going to compare the potential war scenarios between Iran and Israel. This is not clickbait. I genuinely believe that this kind of video will be interesting for many of you. In the first scenario, Iran decides to attack Israel with ballistic missiles and drones. How would Israel respond? And in the second scenario, Israel preemptively strikes Iran's nuclear facilities. Let's get into it. Okay, so scenario 1. Iran attacks Israel with ballistic missiles and drones. Iranian ballistic missiles are generally less accurate and have a shorter range than Israeli ballistic missiles. But Iran has more of them, and they're cheaper. So in terms of volume, Iran could fire off hundreds of missiles in a very short amount of time, overwhelming Israel's defenses. However, Israel's Iron Dome and its other missile defense systems are designed to intercept incoming missiles. And according to some estimates, about 90% of Iranian ballistic missiles could be meaning that even if Iran fires off hundreds of missiles, only about 10% of them will actually make it to the ground. But what about drones? Well, Iranian drones are mostly used for intelligence gathering, and there aren't many of them, so it's unlikely that they will pose a serious threat to Israel. In terms of aerial attacks, Iran would most likely use its fighter jets. Now, Iran's fighter jets are old, and most of them are from the 1970s. They don't stand a chance. Against Israel's fourth-generation fighter jets, Israel also has the edge in terms of air defenses, so in the end, Iran would probably not even try to attack Israel through the air. They know that they will lose. So then what? What would Iran's strategy be? Well, the most likely scenario is that Iran will try to blockade the Strait of Hormuz. This will cut off Israel's access to the Persian Gulf and the oil fields there. It will also disrupt the flow of goods and services to and from Israel. Now, Israel could try to break through the blockade, but that would be very risky. If Iran successfully blockades the strait, Israel will have to turn to its navy. But Israel's navy is small. It is only a few ships, and in a direct confrontation with Iran's navy, it will most likely not be able to break through. Israel could also try to use its air force to destroy Iran's naval forces, but that would be a very risky move, because Israel's air force is vulnerable to Iran's ballistic missiles. What about the Iranian proxies? Well, the Iranian proxies, including Hamas, Hezbollah, and Islamic Jihad, could launch attacks on Israel from Gaza, Lebanon, and Syria. But these attacks would be limited because these organizations don't have the strength to sustain a long-term conflict. In the end, Israel will most likely be victorious in such a conflict. But at what cost? The Israeli economy will be devastated. The constant state of alert and the massive military buildup will take a toll on the average Israeli citizen. Plus, there will be casualties. There will be people killed and wounded on both sides. Now let's talk about scenario 2. Israel preemptively strikes Iran's nuclear facilities. This will be a massive undertaking. It will require a massive mobilization of Israel's military and its economy. But it will be a one-off event. There will be no long-term conflict to worry about. Yes, there will be casualties. Iran will retaliate, and it will not sit idly by while Israel destroys its nuclear program. But the retaliation will be limited because Iran knows that it cannot win a major conflict with Israel. In the end, both scenarios lead to the same result. Israel gets its way. But in scenario 2, it gets its way without having to fight a major war. The cost is also much lower. No long-term economic disruption. No casualties from a prolonged conflict. Of course, there are risks. There is always the possibility that the conflict escalates and becomes larger than what Israel originally planned for. But that is a risk that Israel is willing to take. Well, that's it for this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And as always, thank you so much for watching.